Welcome to this just over 10-minute tutorial, and today I'm going to show you how I took our Victorian staircase from this to this. I fully restored the original handrails, which are over 130 years old, through hours and hours of hard but extremely rewarding work, which has brought this staircase back from gloss paint hell to its historic beauty. I'm going to walk you through the whole process step by step, showing you exactly what I did and what I used to get these banisters looking their best again. Now, prior to this process, I fully stripped the paint off the handrails and newel posts, which is a whole process in itself, and you can watch that whole tutorial over on my channel right now. I'm going straight in from after the paint had been stripped and to show you how we restored it from its bare state. We had some new spindles added, and the handrail had been secured as it was a bit wobbly before, so there were a lot of little holes to fill. So for this part I just grabbed a cheap wood filler, and you want to try and match that wood filler to the handrail wood colour. I do think I went a little too light here, but it's not the end of the world. You are just going to push that filler into any holes or little nicks in your wood, and don't worry about getting it perfectly smooth. As always with filler, you want to overfill the hole slightly so then you can sand it back and get that good level finish. This is a bit of a tedious process, but it's not difficult. It's very DIY friendly, whether you're brand new to DIY or a bit more experienced. I've used a lot of fillers over the years, and I really rate this one. It was really easy to use and quite affordable too. Different fillers will have different drying times, so make sure you read the instructions on the packaging to know how long to leave it to dry before sanding. This is a super necessary step. Do not skip over it, because even the smallest holes can be seen eventually. As they say, it is all in the prep work, and that's what makes the end result look as amazing as it does. And the steps of these stairs will be carpeted, so do not judge us for those. They are beyond saving at this point. Now, once everything is filled, you want to leave that to dry as per the instructions before we go into a very key stage of the process, and that is sanding. As you can see, this handrail needs a lot of work. There is no way it could be left like this. So if you're in a similar position, do not fear, because it all gets better from here onwards. So you want to grab yourself an electric sander. I'm using a wireless one here that I already own. You can do this manually with sheets of sandpaper if you like, but an electric one is going to make the job a lot easier and give you a much smoother finish. Wired sanders do tend to be a lot cheaper, and you can get them online or at most DIY stores. I'm using an 180 grit sandpaper here, not too harsh so that it can mark the wood, but not too light that it doesn't do what we need it to do. You just want to run this up and down the handrail in back and forth motions and use the pointed end to get into any detail or curved edges like we have here. I'm using this sander to smooth over the wood that have been caked in paint for so many decades, but also to get those remaining flakes of white gloss gone. Again, you do not want to skip this stage, otherwise you are not going to get that lovely smooth finish that we are going for here. Sanding is going to get us back to the true bare wood, take any rough edges off, and give us a uniform base for the wood stain and painting process, which is coming up very soon. And make sure you wear a mask for this part of the process so you don't inhale any sanding dust, and many sanders will come with a vacuum attachment so you can extract the dust as you sand. Unfortunately, mine was broken, which meant the house got a little dusty throughout all of this. Just be sure to protect any surfaces that you don't want to get dusty or dirty before you start. I also sanded back the newel post, which as you can see still had some paint deposits on it, and it is not a lovely, rich, deep hardwood like the handrail, so I'm sanding it back to be good enough to paint rather than to show off in its natural state. If you're doing the same, just remember that you don't need it to look perfect now, you just need it to be smooth. So don't hyper-focus on getting every last bit of paint or muck off, just be sure it's smooth enough that when you do paint it, it looks as good as it can. This newel post also had some detailed ridges in it, so I used a basic scraper just to get any bits of rough paint or grime out of those before we leave it all alone and move on to painting. This is definitely the worst bit of the process. I mean, does anyone actually enjoy sanding? But the good news is it gets a lot easier from this point. We're now going to clean off all the sanding dust. I gave the handrails, newel posts and spindles a wipe down with clean water and a soft cloth just to get any of that dust off, as you don't want to lock that dust in when you paint. Anything that does stay on the surface could cause a little bumpy texture, which is obviously not what we want to achieve here. You can see how much smoother and clearer the handrails are looking already after a good wipe down. It's a good indication of what's to come, but again, if they're not absolutely perfect, do not worry. The wood stain we're going to use is going to cover a lot of sins, and we are DIYers here, not professionals, so give yourself a little bit of grace on all the hard work you've put in so far. You're not looking to drench the handrail or any of the banister completely, just a light surface wipe until you're happy it's all clean and dust free. These handrails are such a beautiful shape. We are really blessed to have these original features still in the house and still almost exactly how they were back in the late 1800s. Now, I would prefer it if they hadn't been covered in white gloss, but I'm just glad the previous owners didn't rip them out at the very least, because there aren't many other historic features here that were left intact. Right, so now we are clean. We're going to leave this all to dry before coming back for the most satisfying part, painting and wood staining. For the hardwood handrails, I'm using this Wix 5-year wood stain in brown mahogany, which I'm not sure if they make anymore, but it's the same tin we used on the downstairs staircase, so I'm going to use this to get a uniform look throughout the whole house. This is very easy to apply with a simple paintbrush, but it does have a slightly glossy feel to it, so do not overwork it. You just want to paint it on in up and down motions, smoothing out those brush marks as you go. It's such a gorgeous rich colour that just makes the wood look really decadent. This wood stain isn't a paint that covers, it's a stain that adds pigment to the wood while bringing out the wood grain, but it does leave a bit of a sheen, which I personally really like. There are lots of different types of wood stain out there, some that don't give a shiny finish, some that do, and there are stains to suit all wood types. So if you've got an oak or walnut handrail, for example, you should pick a stain colour that's closer to the natural colour of the wood. You can see how beautifully this is going on, and because it is a slightly glossier finish, the paint goes a bit tacky as it starts to dry, so do not overwork it, otherwise you can end up with patches that look a bit sticky or claggy. And while this is looking super shiny now, it is not a one coat wonder product and it will dry down a bit more matte than this, so keep watching to see how I achieve that beautiful final sheen with one key step that you cannot skip. If the underneath of your handrail is exposed too, like ours is here, then make sure you get right under it, in between each spindle, so no part is missed, and you'll really get that premium look all over. This particular wood stain has a fairly long drying time, so just don't do any DIY that could create dust nearby for a day while it dries, otherwise that could settle into your wet paint and give you unwanted texture. If you do spot any little bits of dust as you're painting, just flick it off with your finger as you go while the stain is still wet. And this is an oil-based wood stain which requires white spirit to clean your brush up with afterwards. So again, just read the instructions on the tin to see if you need anything additional for the cleanup. Similarly, make sure you cover any flooring or surfaces you're worried about getting drips of your wood stain on, as this is going to be more difficult to clean up than a standard emulsion. You can never be too careful. Now, as you can tell, I really did enjoy this part. It is so satisfying to see the transformation happen literally before your eyes. But it gets even better now because we're going to leave that to dry for a day while we crack on with painting the spindles and newel posts. I am not going to be using the same wood stain for these. I am going for strong contrast using a black wood paint all over. As you can see, the wood of the spindles and newel post are completely different to the handrail, so I never would have got that same finish with the stain. Instead, I'm using my favourite black paint for wood. It's Frenchic's Lazy Range paint in the colour Loof. What I love about it, apart from the incredible coverage, is that it's self-priming, so no need to prime your wood before painting. Full disclosure, they did send me this to use, but I asked for it because I've used it in so many places throughout our home, and the finish and durability is just unbeatable. Now again, this is not the fastest process. There's a lot of detail to get into here with the different shapes and curves of the newel post, so you need a bit of patience and maybe some good tunes playing to keep the momentum going. But this isn't hard. Again, very DIY friendly. Even if you're not a seasoned painter, this black paint is easier to apply than the wood stain. Just watch out for any drips as you go. Any drips that dry onto your wood might be visible when you reach the end result, and we don't want that. You can see how well this is covering the wood, and considering it is just the first coat, I think all I'll need to do is a few touch-ups in areas when it comes to the second coat. I am taking this black paint all the way up the side panel of the staircase too. This is just so that it all blends together rather than this side panel standing out as something different. And of course, these new pine spindles are getting the black paint treatment too, creating a dramatic yet opulent effect. Painting spindles is, as you can imagine, quite fiddly and intricate as they are completely curved and have some detailed sections in them. So this did take a fair bit of time, but just lock in and know that once they're done, they are done forever. Now the final stage before we can say we are actually done. You want to grab a light grit sandpaper. I'm using 240 grit here, and just give the handrails a light rub. This is going to make your finish so much smoother than just slapping on a second coat. You may feel like you're undoing some of your hard work here, but please trust the process. This is absolutely going to work and you will not regret it. The sandpaper is just going to take off any remaining texture. It's kind of like exfoliating your skin. It's going to leave it so smooth and ready for some deep moisturising. And as you can see, the wood is still very much stained the colour we want it to be. This step just smooths it right back and means that that glossy finish will stay on top rather than being soaked up into the wood like it is with the first coat. I wouldn't use your electric sander for this step because you really want it to be a light surface level sand, so doing it manually will allow you to control how hard you go with the sandpaper. But thankfully, this is the last of the sanding now, and there's only one more coat to go. But again, we just need to clean all that dust off. Get yourself some clean water, no soap this time, and just wipe the whole thing down to remove any remaining sanding dust. There shouldn't be as much as last time, so this will be a very quick clean before we go into second coat in the wood stain once all that water has dried off. You're going to apply it exactly the same way as you did before, painting in the same direction to give that lovely smooth finish. If you come at it from all different directions, you could end up with chunky brush marks, so I minimise this by just going back and forth. Now you can see it's quite glossy when wet, and that slight sheen is going to stay this time, giving that premium polished look that I want for this beautiful original Victorian staircase. That second light sand is going to make this application so smooth and it's going to look flawless, so as I said, do not skip over it. I'm already getting a feel for the end result here, and I could not be happier with how this looks. The dark, rich banister is a stunning feature in what is quite a simple and remarkable hallway, but the shape of the handrails and the flair of the spindles are really popping now. We are so close to the finish line. I'm just second coating the other handrail here, and the stain is going on an absolute dream. You shouldn't need to do more than 2 coats, but obviously everyone's house is different, so just do what works for you. You can practically feel the concentration on my face here. I am locked in, just making sure I don't miss any parts and that I get into all the areas of the underneath of the handrail to get that gorgeous finish all over. The wood stain will just take another day to dry. Don't touch it or do anything dusty nearby while it sets, and a few days later I came back to get the same black paint all over the spindles here. Even better, most of these spindles are the original Victorian ones. They actually survived the renovation, so it's really nice to have these still. Once again, I'm amazed at how good this one coat coverage is. It gives me a lovely feeling of relief that I'm not going to have to do more than 2 coats all over these. And I am pleased to say that is it. We are done, and let's start by reminding ourselves of the nasty white gloss situation we started with. Not ideal, but hey, at least the staircase was still here. And now here is how it's all looking. An amazing transformation that took so much hard work, but I have to say it is worth it for that really decadent, classic, elevated finish. The curves and shaping of the handrails are really standing out now. This stain and paint just highlights the best of it all, and I think the end result really does justice to this beautiful original Victorian feature. Plus, it's all in keeping and coherent throughout the house from top to bottom. We have a beautiful continuous look across all the banisters. And as I mentioned, I've got so many other tutorials live on my channel, from paint stripping to tiling to fitting ceiling roses. So if you're working on a project or you're just curious about DIY, then please do subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this video helped you with your own restoration project. Drop any questions in the comments, and of course, everything is linked in the description to help you get started with your next DIY. Thanks, and come back soon for more.